Welcome to Mercy's Designs. My name is Mercy and I sell Stampin' Up! Products. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful card using the brightly gleaming suite. The stamp set is called Christmas Gleaming, and it is a bundle and it comes with 2 punches if you choose that option. Anyhow, I just thought this was really pretty and very festive. I also used the coordinating brightly gleaming DSP, the specialty paper, and I brought in some copper, and this is Pool Party, and on the background is the pretty Peacock, the matting here. And then my base is very vanilla thick cardstock, and when you open it up, I stamped this sentiment, and this is from The Greatest Part of Christmas, which is a hostess set. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring in the Stamparatus to stamp our sentiment. So I have that ready right here, and I have decked the halls with broods of holly. So I just like to fit this in here, and I'm going to bring in the real red. Now you could use cherry cobbler for this if you wanted, but I like the way the real red looks, and I liked a really dark impression, so I double stamp it. Okay, so there we have it. Now I'm just going to set this aside. So the next part I'm going to show is how I fit the front. Now, of course, I do not like to waste too much of the copper paper. So what I'm doing here is a little trick, and that is doing like a faux mat. Now, in order to make this work, you have to have it even with your paper. So here and here, you can't have it like showing like that, which isn't a problem for me. So to do that, I'm going to bring in my embossed paper, and this is with the Stylish Scroll embossing folder, and this is in the Pool Party. So I have this cut just a little under 4 inches this way, and a little under 5 1/4, so it's closer to 5 1/8. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is bring in my Tombow glue, and I'm going to be generous, more generous than I usually am with the Tombow glue. Ooh, not that generous. This came out pretty fast because this embossing kind of can make it harder to get it to stick. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to line this up here. Now I intentionally do have an overlap, but I'm going to make sure that this side is even. This side we will trim, bring in my guillotine paper trimmer. So here I'm just going to add my glue, and for this one we're going to do a little bit of maneuvering. This isn't too hard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to estimate where I want this. So because we're using liquid glue, I will have a moment to adjust if I need to. And of course this is a little bit harder doing it on camera, so bear with me. Okay, so I like that about that amount of border. And then I'm going to kind of look at my scroll here to kind of line it up to make sure that it's nice and straight, and I think that is pretty good. So that is how we fit that part. The next is to just go ahead and adhere this brightly gleaming DSP. So again, I'm going to make sure that my left side is lined up perfectly, and my right will have the waist. So, just making sure I can have that little wiggle room. Okay, so I feel like this could go up just a teeny bit. Yeah, that's much better. And if I feel like it's still off here, I do have an opportunity to trim it. Normally I can do a little bit better, but it is a little more difficult on camera. So I'm going to set this aside and bring in my trimmer. So here is my old retired trimmer, and I still love this thing. Don't ever tell me I have to get rid of it. because I'm not. And because I felt like I didn't get it perfectly straight, I'm gonna go ahead and trim that up a little. And then, so this is going to be, this is now 3 7/8, I believe. Yes. And then I want this one 5 1/8. So that is now trimmed to my specifications. I think that looks good. And now we can start building our base. So what I want to do is to go ahead and, I'm sorry, not putting that in the air. It's going to be out here, but we will have this mat. Now I use this to cut out the heirloom dies, and it will hold it. But before I get started, I will go ahead and stamp inside because I don't want to have the pressure. Sometimes it wobbles if you don't do this part early enough. Ask me how I know. I had to do a little fix job on one of mine. Now another hint I have is make sure your block is big enough. This would probably fit a D block, but when you can hold on both sides, it really makes a difference. And the other thing is, if you're using grid paper, that will help you as well, which I'm not. But you'll get it much straighter than if you just try to, stamp with a very barely fitting block. Okay, so this little scrolly thing came with the stamp set. This, of course, was with the greatest part of Christmas, the sentiment. And what I like doing is just flipping this. We'll see how I do. Not too bad. Now I'm turning this around, and I'm just going to repeat it. So that's what you get. And that turned out pretty well. So the next part is a little bit of coloring, and I went ahead and stamped it. So I have here, we're going to set this aside for the time being. I've already stamped this, and you can see here are the stamps that I used. And unfortunately I got the wrong tag on that one, but it really is the scrolly one, the big one. The wrong label. I was very unhappy with myself, but that's what happens sometimes, and you just got to move on. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this under here, and I'm going to speed this part up, but I'm going to be using cherry cobbler, old olive, and I'm going to be using for the ornament, I'm going to use light pool party. So sit back and relax, and I will start coloring. So here is my coloring for the bauble, and I used the Delicata ink to color the top metal part, quote unquote. And here, as you can see, I was using the crystal effects to add to the berries, and this does need to dry, so I already have one pre-done for this part. So I will bring that in. Here we go. So the next part is I'm going to work on assembling the tag. So we're going to bring that back in, and we are almost done with this card. It's a great assembly line type card you can do. So I've made about 10 of them for the holidays to give out, and I thought, why wouldn't I make a video tutorial of it? It's just so beautiful, this whole brightly gleaming suite. Really enjoy it. So to attach my ribbon here, and this is part of the In Colors ribbon, I'll just bring that in real quick. Right here. I just cut a small piece, and I'm just going to tape it behind it. So what I do is just hold it like kind of like that, grab some tape and add it. I haven't had any problems doing this method. Just make sure that you overlap that part enough that it has a good firm hold. So that looks pretty good. I'm just going to try to make sure this is nice and straight. Again, this is a little harder to do on camera, but you get the idea. It's really actually pretty easy and straightforward. So now let's bring back in our card. This is the card front, sort of. So what I do here is I'm just going to add a little bit on the corners, making sure I don't go where, you know, it's going to show through on the matting. So just set this right down. It's a very good way to utilize every piece of cardstock. I really don't like to waste my cardstock. So having, using it this way is a good way. So there, that's what it looks like so far. Here is our base, and all I need to do is add this here. Oh, and one other thing is, if you're concerned about holes here, I've punched it to it in a 1/4 inch circle here with some scrap cardstock, and I'll just reinforce it this way. That way there's no possibility of it kind of giving in the center. But again, it's a shame to waste a huge piece of your, could be your favorite cardstock, which this definitely, the Pretty Peacock is my favorite of the In Colors for this year. Okay, so I'm just going to center this up as best as I can, and if I'm a little off, I have that little bit of wiggle room. So here it is. Now to finish this off, we're going to add this here, but I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the card. Oh, one quick thing, because there's an uneven distance here, you can take a little bit of a scrap, which I have here, and add it just so that it doesn't kind of collapse on this part. It'll just, so just quickly doing that. I'm being a little bit generous with the glue here. So I'm just going to add this up here. Now I did try it on this side, and it looks pretty good that way too. So whatever your preference is to put this focal sentiment, you can do that. I have a little bit of tear and tape here I've already attached, and then I have dimensionals. So if this is giving in too much, what you can do is add a glue dot behind it, which I think I will do that. Just getting all these dimensionals off. So I just like to center it right here. I think that looks really good. So you can see this is kind of bubbling up a little bit. Always keep your handy dandy glue dots handy because they are to the rescue if you have any issues like that, and they're great for adding kind of after the fact. So I'm just going to slip that under, and now you can see it fits in better. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is this seems kind of a little flat, and you could put pop dimensionals up, or you can take a couple pieces and you can punch out a couple of your baubles, your ornaments here, and just adhere them together. And this will give you a little bit more substantial piece, and it's very easy to do. Just punch them out real fast. It doesn't take long, and you can just use some scraps. Although I would suggest try to go with a color similar, because you will kind of see on the edge a little if you, it's kind of obvious if you don't have that matching perfectly. So now I'm just going to go ahead and add here. Oh, I think I want this a little bit lower. And then the final touch here is going to be our bow. And of course, I'm kind of crazy about this copper trim here. It's just fantastic to work with. It makes perfect bows every time. That could be their advertisement for it. And I've already made a few here. If you're curious to see how to make these, I just do bunny tails, and I did it on my previous video, but today I'm just going to go ahead and match this up here. Just push it against it, and then I'm just going to add it at the top of this, and I think that's just adorable. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you have any stamping needs, please email me at mewants3@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to help you place an order with the host code. Here is my original, this with this color versus this with the DSP. Those are the only differences. I think this is my favorite. Let me know in the comments below which one do you like the better. But I think this is just a fantastic holiday card and quite easy to make. So I hope you give it a try. If you have any questions, please comment or email me. Thanks so much for watching, and happy stamping.